Okay, well, our next question here, boy, what an episode this is, was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Brad Stutz.
Stutsy.
You know this man.
Brad Stutz from North Carolina.
Okay, I didn't know if you were just applying a nickname to him.
No, he's the illegitimate son of Billy McGuire.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, looks just like him.
Well,
I love you, Stutsy. I'm just kidding.
Here's his question.
I'm not kidding about you looking like Billy McGuire, but I like you anyway.
Will you leave him alone?
All right.
What does Jim think would have been the possible top matches for Starrcade 89 if they had gone with a traditional card instead of the Iron Man concept? Does Flair work with Muta? Possibly Flair versus Luger? Or in that scenario, do you just say Flair versus Funk I Quit for Starrcade?
Well, I wish I could tell you, because in a normal environment, I was on the booking committee and we would have thought of matches like that, except that, as I said a while back, as I remember being told by Jim Herd, this is what we're going to do. You know, the round robin tournament, which killed Starrcade and killed almost everybody in it. And Muta got beat 3 times in one night. Which is pretty much when he started thinking about heading back home. And of course, Gary Hart was telling him, don't let him turn you babyface, brother, because Gary didn't want to lose his guy. But Muta was like, fuck this. I can see where this is going. If we had been booking a Starrcade card, I don't know if I would have pitched for Flair against Muta there, because I wanted to see the match. But at the same time, Flair was a babyface, but Muta really didn't Muta was cool and didn't have a lot of fucking heat. I would have liked to have put more steam behind Muta and Flair as an issue, as an individual single issue, before we pulled the trigger on it, than what was there at that time. But I would have loved to have seen that match, just not at Starrcade 89 in a round robin tournament. But I mean, that's when so many of the fucking guys had been signed to these guaranteed contracts, and they knew what they were making, regardless of whether they drew or not, regardless of whether they were on top or not, regardless of whether they were on pay-per-view or not. That's when everybody was getting fucking, hangnails and taken off if they didn't like what was going on, and it just ruined everybody's work ethic. Guaranteed contracts, guaranteed minimums are fine. Guaranteed contracts were garbage. And I had one too. And I'd earned every penny of it for putting up with Jim Herd. But, you used to have, oh, shit, if we get this done, and boy, and we really kick this in, and we sell some fucking tickets, you knew what your payoff was going to be, no matter whether you were the main event of Starrcade or the first match of a fucking house show. You already knew what you were making, so there was no incentive whatsoever. That's one of the first things that ruined the fucking business. I don't know, but so anyway, what I was saying is, every time we started an angle, remember skyscrapers and fucking whoever, then one of the skyscrapers would get hurt, or Sid would want to play softball, or somebody else would get hurt, or somebody else would take off, or this would happen, or that would happen, or Herd would get involved in something and it would screw up the program. So there was no, Dusty always knew by the summertime, after he blew off shit in the Great American Bash, he knew what he was going to Starrcade with. I had just gotten on the booking committee in September-ish, October-ish. They pretty much knew the direction of the November Clash of Champions at that time. And then, as you'll recall, it was news to Terry Funk when they announced that he would be, if he lost the match, he would be retiring from wrestling. It was news to him because he just decided he was going to move Terry into commentating and announcing and fucking put him on the booking committee and take him out of the ring. And it was news to Terry, which led to the ill feelings that had Terry leaving early. Because Terry didn't mind fucking not wrestling for a while, but he didn't just say, what the fuck? He never said, I'm just not going to wrestle anymore. Obviously. Even when he said he wasn't going to wrestle anymore, he still wrestled. So there was no build to anything past month to month. What you could get past Herd and get done and book for the month, because we would book 30 to 40 days out so the cards could get advertised in the house shows. And by the time that we'd sit down to do the fucking, next round, something would have changed. Somebody got mad. Somebody got hurt. Hurd would have stuck his nose in. There was no build. So I don't know what I would have fucking done. I'd have to have a lot longer to fucking go back and give you something than sperm of the moment notice.
Luger was a pretty hot heel coming out of not just that summer, but that Clash of the Champions, where after the match, he destroyed the, Wrestler of the Year trophy, Wrestler of the Decade trophy for Flair, and most popular wrestler for Sting, and attacked everyone in the middle of that angle at the end of the match.
That's probably the most over that Lex ever was, and he was a great heel. And then, of course, within fucking January, 3 months, Sting got hurt and had to switch him back babyface, and I don't think Lex ever got that back again. His matches were great. He was confident. He was a good heel. People were getting into it. And then, but the start of 1990 started the downhill slide when Flair quit as Booker, switched Luger, Sting was hurt, we were marginalized. Then Ole came in with, he just said, well, we'll just bring in the cheap guys. Like he wanted to do what he did with the Road Warriors beforehand, just bring in a bunch of muscle guys and see if anything stuck. And so 90 was the downhill slide that they didn't recover from till 96. So it was pretty brutal. That was the start of brutality.
You know, I just started thinking about a program that I liked, which was, and Luger probably hated it, but Luger against Stan Hansen. But I had never asked you, what did you think of the Steiner Brothers Nasty Boys program?
Well, it was great because they were slobber knockers, as they say. And, you know, you definitely could tell they weren't classic smooth matches, but the Nasty Boys they were still okay then. They hadn't become parodies, and they were still working pretty hard. And, you know, they hadn't got into the whole fucking, you know, just we're Hogan's sidekick thing, because the mid-90s Nasty Boys was not the same as the early 90s Nasty Boys. So I liked it, but, you know, once again, they were at a period of time where if the match is great in the forest and there's nobody there to see it, is it any good? You know, it was just, that was the time period where nobody was watching WCW. Although, well, wait a minute. Okay. That was the dark days where nobody was watching WCW, and the ratings on Saturday night were 3 to 4 times what AEW's is, but I digress.
That match is my favorite Frankensteiner of all time. I think it's Jerry Sags gets hit with it.
Yeah.
And he jumps, I want to say perfectly, but it's almost not perfectly because he perfectly lands right on his head. It's just brutal. He tried to go with it like you would, not knowing that when Scott Frankensteinered you back in those days, you were going with it whether you tried to or not, and so it was a little too much go. But you know, yeah, they had some slobber knockers there. But I ask Austin Idol sometime about working a program with Stan Hansen.